Ignoring Jenny, Camilla turned to the others with a horrified look on her face as the grave mistake they had all made dawned upon her. Why didn't he say he was driving a luxury van worth so much money? The group thought as they stood in stunned silence. The fact he had parked it on the side of the road instead of in the restaurant's designated parking area had made him look poverty-stricken. The fickle, gold-digging women suddenly started to find Damon attractive, and their body language and behavior changed dramatically as each one found a new target for their attention.
He's actually quite handsome.
Jenny looked deathly pale as her mind raced.
What? I don't have that kind of money to pay for the van repairs.
She thought in a panic. She started to change her attitude toward Damon.
Well, I was thinking that since we're all friends...
But Damon coldly interjected.
Yes, I was also thinking that since we're all friends, you could let me have the money for the van repairs, and I'll get it done.
He suggested, glaring at her.
I'd hate to waste your valuable time and ask you to get it done yourself.
Jenny's eyes widened in anguish.
I have no way of paying him that kind of money.
She thought in despair. She barely made ends meet as it was, and had no savings to her name. She had done odd jobs since graduating from senior high school, but the money earned had been spent on clothing and nights out with the girls. She started to form a plan in her mind, put what she thought was her sexy face on, and smiled alluringly at Damon.
Is there any other way you can think of that I could pay off the debt?
She asked seductively. She knew that approach usually got her what she wanted from men, and she wasn't surprised when she saw that Damon appeared to be in a dilemma. She grinned at him, thinking her plan had succeeded.
Why didn't you and I get together in the first place?
She asked in a sultry voice. She ran her tongue over her bottom lip and leaned forward to expose her ample cleavage.
I think we're perfect for each other.
Gabriella stood with her mouth agape at Jenny's behavior.
What's she doing? I can't believe she's trying to seduce him.
She thought, feeling exasperated. Damon considered his options and shook his head.
As you said, there are other ways to deal with this situation.
Thank you.
Jenny exclaimed excitedly. Her eyes shone as she continued.
You're so understanding. I'll send you my online chat details, and then I can invite you to my place. I'll make you dinner. I'm a great cook, so I know you'll love it. What the hell is she talking about cooking for? We all know she's offering him sex.
Gabriella thought. Gabriella quietly studied Damon. She had no idea how he had come into so much wealth, but she knew that men tended to change their behavior after coming into money. She wondered if he had also abandoned his principles. But Damon didn't let her down. He stepped away from Jenny and said politely,
No thank you. I'll call the police then and let them sort it out.
Jenny's eyes bulged.
That's not what I meant. Didn't he understand what I was insinuating?
She thought in alarm.
What do you mean?
She stammered as the color once again drained from her face. He didn't reply. Gabriella broke the silence and suggested,
I'll call them for you. I'm sure they know how to deal with vehicle repair disputes. Gabriella Swan, I'm your best friend. My friends don't stab me in the back.
Gabriella ignored her and made the call. It didn't take long until the police arrived. Jenny started to panic. She had no money to pay for the damages, and she didn't want a criminal record. In desperation, she turned and ran to Carl.
Baby, please, can you give me the money to pay for the repairs?
She pleaded as she started to cry. Carl's mind was in turmoil, and he made a snap decision. He had just been fired from his job a moment earlier because Jenny loved to show off so much. He didn't want to get involved in her mess any more than he had to. He looked at the police officer as he pushed her away.
Sir, this woman scratched that man's van on purpose, and she should pay for what she's done.
Jenny felt heartbroken at his betrayal.
Not to worry, we'll ensure things are dealt with fairly.
Came the officer's reply as a weeping Jenny was led to the police car and helped inside. Her friends seemed to have a case of out of sight, out of mind syndrome. They had forgotten all about her and her plight as they concentrated on Damon. They couldn't believe he was so wealthy. They smoothed their dresses and skirts, secretly checked their lipstick and compact mirrors in their purses, and put on their best smiles for him.
How did I not know he was so rich?
He always seems so poor. If he's this wealthy at this age, imagine how rich he'll be in the future.
Camilla thought as she fluffed her hair. As she finished daydreaming about Damon, she pushed in front of Kylie to try and get his full attention, but Carl beat her to it. He stepped in front of Damon and looked at him pleadingly.
Mr. Hemsworth?
He said in anguish. He had struggled to get the manager's job and was desperate not to lose it. Damon tilted his head as he watched Carl.
You should take this as a life lesson. Never look down on others, because there'll always be someone better than you.
After saying that, he started to walk toward his van once again, but Gabriella stopped him.
Oh, Damon, this has been such a horrible evening. Why don't we find a quiet table and I'll buy us a bottle of red wine so we can relax?
She suggested with a sincere expression. He acquiesced, and after a quick chat to the hostess, let her lead the way to a secluded table for two. They had no sooner seated themselves when a server sauntered toward them. She had caught Damon's attention, and he watched in fascination as she approached them. He noticed the slits on either side of her dress, and how they exposed her long, shapely legs. Gabriella had also seen the woman approaching them, and disappointment washed over her face as she noticed Damon's expression.
I thought he was different from other men, but he seems to be struggling not to drool.
Gabriella thought sadly. She left him to ogle while the woman set a plate of appetizers on the table and uncorked a bottle of red wine. As the woman bent forward to pour the wine into the glasses, a loud ripping noise filled the silence. Gabriella watched in horror as one of the slits in the woman's dress tore up to her waistline and exposed far more than they should have. Damon's attention was no longer on the woman's clothing, but on her face. He couldn't believe he was looking at Jessica.
What the hell? She's the last person I expected to be working as a waitress.
He thought in astonishment. His mind went back to an earlier time when Jessica had seen a purse she wanted. The thing had cost a small fortune, and he had worked in a restaurant for over a month so he could afford to buy it for her. But when he had given it to her, she had thrown it away, saying that it had gone out of fashion. Her voice brought him back to reality.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Clothing isn't made like it used to be.
He detected a faint smell of alcohol on her breath and wondered whether she was drunk. But before he had time to talk to her, the host rushed up to their table. He repeatedly apologized as he took hold of Jessica's arm.
I'm so sorry for this mishap. A previous guest had invited her to sit with him for a glass of wine. She was supposed to have gone home, but it appears she's dedicated and wants to keep working. Please, whatever you have tonight is on the house.
He pulled Jessica aside, still holding her arm.
Jessica, you should have gone home. We cannot have servers under the influence while waiting tables. What are you trying to prove?
He tried to make her walk away with him.
Come on, I'll call you a cab.
He insisted, looking annoyed, but Jessica wasn't having any of that. She leaned toward Damon and held her hand out to him.
Let's go. Don't disturb our guests any more than you already have.
The host persisted. Jessica looked at Damon as though she had only just recognized him.
Damon, please, I don't want to go. I want to sit and talk to you. I haven't seen you for ages, and I'd love to catch up.
Damon stood up and looked at the supervisor.
It's okay. I know this woman. You can leave her with me.
However, the supervisor seemed uncertain about what to do. The restaurant's policy stated that any member of staff found under the influence of drugs or alcohol had to be removed from the premises. But he gathered Damon was some sort of big shot, because he had seen the lawyers and Adam treating him with such respect earlier.
If anyone asks what happened, I'll explain that it was my doing, and I allowed her to stay with me.
Damon explained kindly. That satisfied the supervisor, so he let go of Jessica's arm and retreated. She started to cry miserably as he walked off. She sat on a chair Damon had pulled up and said,
I'm so sorry if I've ruined your evening.
She turned to face Damon and completely ignored Gabriella, who had been sitting quietly watching the drama unfold before her. Damon still looked like a deer caught in the headlights at the sight of Jessica. He couldn't deny he had had feelings for her in the past, even though she was a gold digger. He suddenly remembered he was there with Gabriella.
I'm so sorry about this. Do you think we could have a rain check?
He apologized as he turned to her. Gabriella wordlessly stood up and left. She was terribly disappointed with Damon, and her expression reflected that. She knew Jessica serving them hadn't been a mistake, but couldn't work out what her intentions were.
This entire evening has been a disaster. I hope Damon knows what he's doing. I can't believe he fell for that skirt-ripping trick. I always thought he was different.
She thought irritably, her interest in Damon waning. Damon hadn't explained to Gabriella that Jessica was his ex-girlfriend, and that he was just trying to be a gentleman. Jessica took Damon's asking Gabriella to leave as a sign he still cared about her.
Don't feel bad for me. I'm a hard worker and I'm doing okay for myself at the moment. You always told me I had to stand on my own 2 feet and fend for myself. Well, I've taken your advice. I think I'm doing all right.
She leaned forward and took his hands in hers. He smiled affectionately at her and tilted his head.
I'm happy for you. I think it's a good thing to learn how to be independent.
Jessica smirked inwardly.
He's such a moron. Even though he's rich now, he hasn't gotten any smarter.
She was convinced her little trick had worked and that he would soon be eating out of her hand. She put her acting skills to work as she leaned right up to him so he could see down her dress and crooned.
You still want me, don't you?
Damon's eyes widened as he looked across the table at her.